được anh đợi đi.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to mute everybody, so I'm going to ask everybody to mute. And that way we don't have a lot of feedback. So, Marie, can you mute? You're muted. Nina, can you mute? All right. Well, we're getting set up here. Just bear with me. Go. Danielle will be joining us here in a second, and she will let you guys know how to ask questions. You're going to be using the chat function to ask questions, but I will let Danielle talk about it as soon as she gets here. Okay, so today I'm going to wait a little bit. And maybe adjust the focus here really quick. Hang on. Sorry, you guys are just going to have to deal with me kind of talking to myself for a minute. There. Okay. All right, Danielle, are you here? I guess she is not here yet. All right. Well, I think we will go ahead and get started. Sorry, really close with me. I'm going to turn my screen so I can see it, get some treats for drama, and then we will get started. Is that Danielle?
Yes, yes.
All right, good. Can you let everybody know how to ask questions?
Sure. Hi, everyone. There is a chat function, and so everybody can ask their questions in the chat, and then I will ask the questions to Bobby throughout the webinar. And on your mobile devices and iPads and tablets, you usually have to go to participants, and then below there you'll see a little chat function. Then on your computers and laptops, there's a chat function as well. Usually it's at the very bottom. So go ahead and ask your questions in there whenever you have them, and I will relay those to Bobby.
Great. All right. So are there still people joining, or are we pretty much, has the joining stopped?
Looks like some people are still joining.
Okay, so we'll just give it another second, and I'll just warm drama up while we are waiting. I can turn people's video off, but I can't turn their sound off. So just make sure you remind everybody as they come on to turn their sound off. Come on.
Looks like on.
All right. You talking to me or them?
To them, sorry.
Okay, that's good. That's all right.
looks like almost everybody has their mics off except for somebody named iPad.
That's helpful. So if you have not turned your sound off, make sure that you go to the mic and take it off. And that way, if your dogs bark or somebody comes and talks to you, it doesn't go on the recording. All right. So this is the third webinar. And it's going to show some options with multiple climbs. If you guys have a specific exercise that you want me to show, put it in the comments. Otherwise, I kind of have a list to go by that'll give you guys some ideas. So we're going to start with this setup. Many of my clients and many of you are agility dogs. This is a really good exercise to teach your dogs how to climb and how to slow down. My room is not big enough, so I don't have a rocker board at both ends, but you certainly could put one at both ends. But basically, you want to start, sit, wait. And then you just want to ask the dog to hit all of the climbs with all 4 feet. If they hit this rocker board at speed, it will slide off because it's only being held up by this little lip. I don't know if you can see that, by the little lip that it attaches with. So you've got to be really careful that it doesn't come off. It will scare some dogs won't care. But you really want, at first, you always want to slow things down before you go faster. So we want each climb to be touched on each way. And you can definitely reinforce, if you're doing 2-on 2-off contacts, you can reinforce that there. I know a lot of people are doing running contacts, but this really does teach the dog to push off with their rear. So you can even start, you can even start here and say, sit, sit. See how he pulled his rear up? Sit. Good. Okay. One of my favorite exercises to do with the climbs, and I use it a lot in my workshops as a warm-up, is over-under. And it does a transverse movement through the spine as the dog is turning to go underneath the climb. You can set these down and take the legs off so that they actually are crawling. But today, because I have many different configurations that I want to show, I'm not going to take the legs off. But I want you guys to, I think a lot of you have probably seen it before, where you take the legs off of these two, this one and this one, so that the dog actually does have to crawl. But for today, we're going to leave them up just because otherwise I'm going to be spending all of the time taking the legs off and putting the legs on. Okay. So you can see that transverse movement as he turns and comes in. Oh, nope. Oh. Oh. You're not paying attention. Go here. Go here. Hello. Go here. Yes, there you go. Go. Good boy. And I do have the yoga mats so that he will slip less on the floor. My floor is rubber and it should be non-slip, but as they have planed it, it has gotten more slippery. So the advantage to crawling and going under, a lot of dogs have issues with something being over the top of them. This is a really great exercise to do when dogs are young or when they're older. Again, they do have to crawl, actually moving all 4 legs when the legs are off of the climb. But this is a really great warm-up exercise to do, especially during workshops and things like that. Does anybody have any questions about the benefits of climbing over or the benefits of the turn and going under?
Right now, I just got a few that don't have any sound or audio.
They can't hear anything?
They can't hear anything, yeah.
Well, it automatically comes on when you log on.
No, it doesn't. You have to join it.
You have to join the sound?
Yes.
So it doesn't usually go away. The screen that pops up to join doesn't usually go away unless you answer it. So I would say hang up and come and dial back in, and then say that you want to join the sound.
How do you ask a question?
Does that make sense?
What do you cravings do?
They're eating little bones, which I'm going to take away from them in a minute and put them to bed.
So whoever's dogs are eating little bones, I can hear you guys talking.
Sorry, I've got sound.
And that way this is recording.
Ken, turn it down.
So if you are on if you're on a desktop, you need to look at the bottom, put your cursor on the bottom of the screen and turn off your mic. If you're on an iPad, it's on the top right side, I think.
Another comment is they've lost video. So let's see.
Okay, so those of you, I want to keep going. Those of you who are losing sound and video, just know that you guys are going to get a recording of this afterwards that has sound, okay? Unfortunately, we can't, I can't account for every internet connection. If your internet connection is not strong, you will not hold on to the signal long enough to have everything. So I would advise trying to log out and back in, and then just make sure you turn off your sound and your video when you do that. Okay?
All right.
So Danielle, I'm going to let you deal with those on the chat, and then if you can let me know if there are any questions so far, we'll move on while everybody is sorting out.
Yeah, no questions so far regarding the exercises.
Okay, great. I'm going to try to show a plank using the climbs up here, and I'm going to use the targets. When I do a plank with a dog, it's usually what I consider a soft plank, so that the dog's shoulders, or the front feet are forward of the shoulders and the rear feet are behind the hips. But I don't want his weight shifted forward. I want him to stay shifted into the center. Hopefully you guys can see that. I'm using the targets because I was gonna try to keep him up here, but I think you guys might be able to see it better if I take the climbs apart. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that.
There is one more person with their mic turned on, I believe. I think I'm hearing some background noise. If you see that your little mic is not turned off, if you could turn that off for us, that would be great. Thanks.
So you know that it's not turned off if it doesn't have a line. Should have
right.
A line.
It'll have a red line through it if your mic.
All right. So I'm going to position these climbs. Dharma will get off of them for a minute, so that he has to stretch a little bit more. So can you guys see that he's a little bit overstretched in the front? His feet are forward of his shoulders, and his rear feet are behind his hips. And I'm trying to keep him right in the center. See a lot of planks that look like this. So now he's shifted all of his weight forward, has very little weight on his rear, and he's not engaging his core. But he is engaging his core when he stays in the middle. So there's a lot of information out there about planks, and so I like to cover these soft planks because you can engage the stabilizer muscles in the shoulders and the hips, and the core and the spinal muscles by doing soft planks require those muscles to stabilize in order to keep a flat back. So if you have a dog where their top line is dropping in a plank, this is not the right exercise. So if their top line goes towards the floor, you don't want to do planks with them because they do not have the strength in their upper torso to hold their top line flat. All right. Oh boy. All right. I'm going to set up a little obstacle course. How many, you guys can put it in the comments, how many climbs do you have? And how many climbs do you want? There's never enough climbs. That's my motto.
6, 8.
All right, so I think I mentioned it in other webinars. I do have climb covers on mine. They were bought off of Etsy, and I will, Danielle, if you remind me, we can send the link to the gal who makes them on Etsy when we send the 3 links for the climb webinars.
Right.
Also, I will be doing the drawing after the webinar, and we will include the winner's name in the email as well.
So far we have that people have 6, another 8, somebody else has 4, another one doesn't have any at home but has 1 at the gym, another only has 1 but wants more, 4 but wants more, 0 but 1, 0 but I want a bunch. I bought one of those covers and it is awesome.
Yeah, I like them because they are washable, and they really do keep the dog from moving. That said, if the dog is distributing their weight right, when the dog's not moving fast, they don't really need covers because if they're putting weight to their rear, they don't slide. So where the covers come in really handy is if you have the climbs at an angle or if the dog is moving at speed. So for instance, if I wanted Drama to jump from one climb to the other, I would want some sort of cover so that he doesn't slide off. So if I wanted him to come up. Ready? Go. So if I wanted him to jump from one to another, a lot of people use them to train jumping to a specific target, like dog people a lot use the climbs for that. You do want the slippery to be non-slip for that reason. Otherwise, they may slip across it and fall.
Carolyn says they're like potato chips. You can't have just one.
True statement.
So somebody said I checked Etsy a few days ago and it looks like she's not making them right now. No price given, not taking orders, but maybe she was backed up from Christmas.
Yeah, she might have been. So just email her and see when she wants to do them. You can also, I have cut yoga mats that go on top of them. One of my climbs, I do have it actually affixed with some Velcro or command strips. Most of the time, though, I just throw them on the top because I like to remove them so that the dog can shift their weight. And so I can tell whether they're shifting their weight to the rear or not. It takes me a lot when they slide. All right. How many have the 50-centimeter peanut?
Carolyn said B.
course she does.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot I need the.
It has the big blue one.
Forgot I need the legs on the front of these. Hang on. I need an assistant that lives here. All of this is far away. It's not fair.
Oh, don't tempt Jason. He's very, he would move tomorrow.
Aw. You okay with that?
God, let's see. You got another I do, me, Colorado. No, just big blue one. I have one of those. I have Weimaraner.
Huh?
Oh, I just was reading off everybody's,
Comments?
yeah, answer to your.
So this is one of the configurations that I like to do because there's a lot of different options with it. And maybe I can turn it up.
So it seems like several people have the blue one because they have a bigger dog.
The blue peanut. You can squish it into the Klimb if you try hard enough. Just take a little bit of air out of it. All right, so I have to put non-slip stuff under all of my stuff because my floor is slippery. All right, so here is a basic kind of obstacle course that you can do where you can do many, many, many things. So, I'm forgetting my sheets over here. All right. We're going to go over this one step at a time. If Drummer will let me. Good. So here's your plank. I'm going to push him back just a little bit, and that bone is going to move, so I'm going to ask him to get off. Back. Good. Leave it. Good. So here is a plank. If I can get him to shift his weight back. Hold. Hold. Good. Good. Left. Right. And okay. It's okay. Drum. 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 He's not paying attention because I dropped a treat. So better to figure it out. So here is the reverse plank. You can see that he has a lot more weight forward than he did on his rear feet going the other way. So I'm going to try to get him to shift back and do a bow. And then I'm going to pull him forward. And then down. So it is asking a lot to get them to tuck that tight into or onto the bone. But a lot of dogs, they might think that they cannot do it, but they really can. And it's really asking their spinal muscles in their core to scrunch up quite a bit. And that's okay. So don't be afraid to ask them to go to just one bone.
Couple questions.
Sure.
What about their backs curving up while in a plank instead of nice and flat?
So you want the back to be flat, not curved, but you want it to be flat for the breed. You don't, I'm not trying to correct structure. You want to make sure that you adjust your treat position. So where their nose is really affects what their spine is doing. So the lower their nose is, the more they will roach up. And the higher it is, the more they will kind of squat back. you want to try to maintain a flat back. If the dog can't maintain a flat back or as flat as conformationally acceptable, then a plank is probably not the best exercise. They're pulling stress in the spine versus just activating the muscles to stabilize. So it's probably asking too much. I would just go to standing in a normal stand and then a softer plank. So maybe you move those out or the equipment out, you know, like 1 inch instead of 4 inches. Hopefully that makes sense. Any other questions?
Yes. What about doing this plank with a smaller dog? Your Border Collie is the perfect length, but I have a Jack Russell and they are too short for this.
Somebody's sound is on.
Uh-oh.
So with a smaller dog, I just add another bone and rear feet are here, front feet are here, and another bone here. So it would look more like this. So they would be doing the plank from here to here and from here to here.
Don't know if it was just me, but you might want to repeat that really quick because it there was some lag time.
Okay. So again, with a smaller dog, I would just add another bone to the plank and ask them to plank between these 2 bones and the peanut versus these 2 bones and the peanut.
Better.
All right. We ready to move on or no?
Yep.
That one. So here you can ask for sit, squat. So this is a squat. I'm going to move him back. Squat. Squat. I don't know. I know his back is to you, but unfortunately, without trying to shift this all the way around a different way, I'm not sure I can show it in any other way. You want the rear feet to stay reasonably still, and you want that squat and back to a stand. You don't necessarily want them to pause at the bottom. You want to keep loading the muscle. And if this situation is too hard, you would just simply pop this out and turn this over. Oh, we need it a little bit closer. Hang on. Oh. Okay. No, no. Yes, there you go. So he still is using those rear legs, but it's not as challenging because he's not as high in the front. And he's on a stable surface in the front. It's a little bit slippery because I took the Klimb cover off, but it does require him to put, he's able to put some more weight forward, but it is still challenging the rear. Any questions about that? I got some more.
Yeah, so she said her Weimaraner has a really wide stance on his back, and when using the large disc, is there any way to help with his rear leg placement?
Yes, usually I would probably not use the disc with him. I would use something like, this is a curved contour disc. And I would maybe ask him to sit on that instead. So something narrower, give him as much room. The other option would be to put an aerobic bench there so that mine are kind of buried right now. I can grab my smaller one, hang on. You can put something like this or the bigger aerobic bench that just helps him understand where you want his legs to be. often do squats holding one front foot because it puts more weight even to the rear. But again, that is a more advanced exercise. So you have to be careful what you're asking of your dog. So hopefully that answered your question. You just need something that is narrower. It could be a hardback book. It could be like the disc that I showed, even a small disc. A small disc might be too small for a Weimaraner, but this contour disc is a little bit wider. This one is made by JFit. And it does, I find that with the bigger dogs, it does work really well because it's a little bit wider side to side.
And that was a question, was where did you get the smaller contour disc?
I got it on Amazon. If you search JFit contour disc, you will find it. The other option is the width. Again, it is a square, and it requires them to bring their feet in. That said, if your Weimaraner has their hocks really, really close together, like a Vizsla, it might not be the right exercise for them because they're overcompensating by bringing their hocks in too close. My face is red. It's really hot in here. I have the venting system vents the pool room into my room, so it gets very muggy in my room. All right, any questions about this setup? There's lots and lots of things that you can do. I could have him sidestep across here, get him to reach. Side, side, side. Yes. Side. Good boy. I could even add more equipment across the bottom for him to sidestep his rear legs too. This would be more of an advanced exercise. Your dog definitely has to understand how to sidestep before you ask them to do this. But you, as you saw with Drama, hopefully you could see, he reaches from each piece of equipment to each piece of equipment. So he's actively engaging those abductors that he needs to stabilize for turning and other movements. All right. Any other questions about this setup? There's like a multitude of 1,000 options you could do with this setup. I could do planks here, or I could ask him to stretch. Stretch. Back, 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 up. Good. Back, back. Sit. Up. Stretch. Up. Stretch. Stretch. Up, back. Yes, good. Stretch. Stretch. Good. Did you see him correct? As the bone, he was kind of pushing it, and then he moved his feet so that he was actually bringing his chest over his the front feet versus just pushing that bone off. That's very good. He could do circles on the climb. He could do lots of different things here. Hopefully you guys can envision some of those foundation behaviors. I could have him back up over the whole thing. Show that really quick. It's basically a exercise in proprioception. Back, 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 back. Keep going. Back, back, back. I know you don't have, he doesn't have eyes in the back of his head, so he wasn't sure what was back there. I think we often forget that they don't have eyes in the back of their head. And he fell down. So I will take him here, and then I will say back, 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 back. Super job, good boy. So I just gave him more information by just having him go forward and back a couple of times. So always, always remember when you're having your dog back to things, part of the reason that they end up reaching all the time and skipping, going backwards, is because they don't have eyes in the back of their head and they can't see where they're going. So always, always, always ask them to go over something forward before you ask them to back up. Any questions, Danielle?
Nope.
Okay.
Not.
All right. Grab my notes. All right. So hang on a second while I switch things up again. Now it's payback, because every time I do a workshop and have helpers, I'm like, take the legs off, take the legs off. Yeah. And now you might have to help me with where to set these up so that everybody can drum on the foot. Full time. All right, so I think I can turn this. Sorry guys, bear with me. I only have 10 climbs. Nope, of course I didn't. All right. So I think you guys have all seen the ipsilateral stand, which is an extension of sidestepping. You want a flat back, you want the foot out opposite the hip, not forward. So many of us have a dog that reaches forward with that back leg. If you do, you're simply going to separate them so that when the dog steps forward, they step into that gap. And on this particular exercise, a lot of people think that we're activating the muscles in the legs that are reaching. We're not. We're actually activating the stabilizer muscles in the legs that are on the floor. So I have a cue to balance, which means find balance in the center, and don't move, basically. So what we're going to ask Drama to do is balance in the center of the two bones. He's going to move to a down and back to a stand. Then he's going to do an ipsilateral stand on both sides. There you go. Balance. Balance. Good. Strong. Balance. Balance. Good. Back. And back. Good. That's good. So see how he adjusts so that his rear leg is straight out from his hip versus coming forward. Now, when he went this way, he really did want to bring that rear leg forward. And now he's got the hang of it. Back, down, down. Good. So notice how he's kind of adjusting back and forth, trying to find his balance. I'm going to see if we can do opposing leg stands, and we'll see if he will do it. Oh. Oh. Right. Yes. Yes. It's a little crooked. We've been working on it a little bit. He doesn't totally understand what I'm asking for yet. But good. Rise. 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 Yes. Good. Good. So this is just more of a proprioceptive exercise versus balance. He's really kind of on the same plane when he's doing the opposing feet, but it's more of a balance and core exercise when he's doing the ipsilateral to ipsilateral. I hope you guys can see the difference. When he's doing opposing feet, he's adjusting his body so he doesn't really have to balance. So hopefully you can see that. I don't know, Danielle, can you see it?
You can.
Okay. Any questions?
Nope, it's a little quiet there.
It's really quiet out there in webinar land, huh?
Yep.
All right, now I'm going to add a couple more things to this setup. This is one of my favorite setups. Some of you may have seen it before. You doing that? So I have the peanut here so that we can do a stretch. And again, with a small dog, I would simply pull that bone out and put it in here. Although that's confusing him. So with a small dog, you would start here. But with Drama, I need to remove this one. Good. There. So this is a really nice stretch. You can do this stretch in many, many different configurations, but this is one where you can add, you can ask them to bow and then come up and then hop. So that hopping motion is really good for the spine and the core, as well as the shoulders. Try again. Up. Oh, yeah, I'm holding it. There we go. So we're going to stretch. It's okay if his back arches a little bit. The spine does need to curve and arch towards the floor just a little bit. You just don't want to hold that position for very long. I'm going to ask him to bow. Bow. Again, he has to stabilize with his shoulders here. Now we're going to come up. And then you could do down and stand and breathe. If your dog has all the foundation to do that. Yeah. All right. So with this configuration, there's lots and lots and lots of things that you could add to this. One of the things that I like to do with the angled climbs is squats. And the reason for that is that the dog cannot put a lot of weight forward or they slide down this surface. So I'm going to move this away.
Really quick before you do that. There was a question of, can you do this with just 2 climbs?
Sure. It doesn't really work it depends on the size of the dog, of course. So if you have a big dog, like a Weimar runner, you won't be able to get a flat back in its lateral stance because the climbs are not long enough. You could definitely do it like this. But you'll be able to see with drama that he's got a roached back because it's not quite long enough for him. And he's only 20 inches at the shoulder, so he's generally pretty small for a border collie. He also can't really do the down, although he's going to make a liar out of me, without scrunching up because the bone is not long enough. So you always want to be watching your dog's posture and position when you're looking at exercises, and make sure that your dog understands the foundation steps before asking them to do it. So for instance, this exercise, if he didn't know how to sidestep, I would be struggling through trying to get him to step. So just make sure you're giving your dog as much information as possible.
And just a quick thought, you could maybe put, if you put the bones on the floor and put the 2 climbs angled, and then you would just have to swap the dog both sides.
You could put the bones here, and then you would just switch sides.
Great.
That is true.
And oh, I guess you might have been referencing the stretch.
No reason why you couldn't do the stretch with just 1 climb. It was just because you're just basically going here with the peanut right here.
Right.
Yeah. Because so you could put 1 climb this way and 1 climb that way with the peanut in it, and then stretch to the peanut. No reason why you can't. Here's your ipsilateral stand. So the biggest problem with the climbs this close, trying to get the dog to balance in the center, is that they have a driving desire to touch equipment. So that balance cue that I'm giving him is really, really important to this, because otherwise he's just going to keep reaching for those climbs just because it's the natural desire to touch the equipment. All right. Any more questions about this?
Nope.
You're supposed to be on your map. All right, so squats. So for a dog drama size, Jude, get on your mat. For a dog drama size, You can put his feet right there on the edge and ask for that squat. Again, you don't want the rear feet to move. And if he puts too much weight forward or your treats are too low, he's going to slide down. Sit, sit, sit. He's going to slide, slide down just like that. So this exercise really helps the dog understand to put more weight to the rear. Now, if you have a taller dog, you just simply stack them. All right, but before we move away from this particular option, I'm going to show you just a shoulder exercise that you can use. Oh, geez. All right. Good, that's what I want. So I want him to stretch down here and then push himself back up and into a sit. So he's going to stretch through his hamstrings a little bit and then he's going to push himself up back to a sit. Are you getting tired of squats? He's getting tired. He's like, dude, how many squats are you going to make me do? So this is a really nice exercise, but it does use the slippery surface, not the climb covers. So in this situation, I'm using that slippery surface to my advantage. Just checking my list. All right. Any questions? I'm going to set up an obstacle course here. But before I do that, definitely utilize the climbs at an angle and flat. Without legs, with legs, you can put all the legs on the top and do all kinds of things. If you have a dog that won't turn tight, for instance, take this out. On top. Say you have a bigger dog. How many of you guys have a bigger dog? I know we have one person with a Weimaraner. I know Marie's on here. She has a bigger dog. Carolyn has a giant border collie. Who else? All right. So I'm just going to ask him to hop it up. Hop it up. Right. So just putting the legs on the top really helps the dog to understand to turn tighter, and it keeps their feet on the climb. So you don't necessarily have to have the climb super far off the ground, but in order to get them to really understand to turn tight, you can set it up like this, and it really does inspire them to keep all 4 feet on the climb versus a lot of dogs, when you say left, they throw their rear off because they just don't know any better. If you want more proprioceptive benefit, I just take the air out of a balance disc and I put it on the climb. Right. And just adds another element of awareness to their feet. And
her Weimaraner is great at tight turns. He touches his nose to his butt while turning.
Nice. Not all of them do, so that's good. All right. Any specific exercise that anybody wants to see? I'm going to set up an obstacle course, but I could probably improvise just about anything once I get it set up.
Nothing yet? Oh, rear end straight through lower back.
So that is covered kind of by the planks. The plank exercise will strengthen through the lower back. exercises that require balance where the dog is reaching forward will activate the muscles in their lower back. I'm not sure I can show that on video, but I will try. Drama, get off of there. The tug toy on my table, Drama thinks that he should have it.
Psoas exercises.
So the stretches that I've shown are psoas stretches. Sorry, it takes me a minute. Keep the questions coming, and I will think about how to incorporate them into the obstacle course once I get set up. You guys get extra points if you have all of the equipment.
Let's see. Adapting setup to small dogs and big dogs. She has the Weimaraner and a mini Schnauzer.
You're gonna have to either build separate obstacle courses or always have a ramp of some sort for your small dog and just change the exercises. So some of the exercises that we do, the mini Schnauzer, it won't be appropriate. It'll be putting too much weight onto the dog's rear legs. So you want to be careful that you're not asking too much just because you don't want to change equipment out. So, so just be aware of lowering things for the smaller dog, or maybe using the angle versus flat when you want something, and definitely using the climb covers will help.
Walk the plank, Drama.
Yeah.
Drama, Drama. Hi, Drama. Hi, baby boy.
You good boy.
Another question. You asked earlier how many climbs we each have. How many would you recommend at minimum?
I can't answer that question. I personally have 8 here and 2 at my house. So it's very difficult for me to rein those thoughts back. You can always do more with more climbs. So, you know, like you can't do that exercise I did in the beginning. You can't do that unless you have 6 climbs. You can do different renditions of it with 3, but there's more benefit in more movement through the climb. So the longer the dog is offering the behavior, the more benefit you get out of it. So this is just a basic obstacle course. that you might set up. I use the 4x4s a lot. So I thought I would incorporate those today. All right. I'm going to be in your way because I didn't leave enough room. Down, 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 up, left, left, right. No. Wait. Back. Somebody's dog is whining. Imagine who that is. Yeah. Up. Good. Stand. Sit. Wait. Good boy. Up. That way. Up. Good. Down. Down. So with the donut, if he puts too much weight forward, it's going to flip the donut. I don't know if you guys saw how he started to flip it and then he adjusted his weight. Good. Good boy. Sit. Good. All right. Get off. So I think you guys kind of got the idea of the squats. So squats is a very popular exercise. Side. Good. So this takes a lot more proprioception than just regular side stepping. Side. Good boy. All right. Good. All right. Does anybody have any questions on what you can do with this type of setup? You can do lots of different foundation moves. You can sidestep, you can do sit stands, down stands, even pivoting. You can do squats in many different locations. You can hop up onto the climb, off the climb. You can do many, many, many different things. And you just need to remember how much you're asking. So I'm not going to ask Rama to do any more squats because I've already asked him to do quite a few. And he's been working on and off now for just over an hour. So I want to be aware of how much I'm asking of him. And you should also be aware of how much you're asking of your dog.
There was a question of how long are your 4x4s?
They're 6 feet, or no, they're 5 feet. This is a 10-foot long one that was cut. Hang on. No, they're not. They're 6 feet.
I was going to say, it's a 12-foot that you
Yeah,
can have.
because it's taller than me and I'm only 5 feet.
That's more than 6 feet then.
Huh?
That's more than 6 feet then.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It was a 12-foot board, I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's taller than 6 foot.
Yeah. All right. And then the last thing I want to show you or inspire you guys to pay attention to is when people have jumping issues, they are generally really, really worried about rear end strength. And they forget that the dog has to lift the front of their body up first. So they really, really need to strengthen the muscles needed to bring that, the front of their body up. So I do that in many, many different ways. I'm going to show you two. Different equipment. I can hear background noise.
I think it's, let's see. Somebody has their audio.
Yeah, if you guys can keep your audio turned off, it does make the recording a little nicer for everybody.
I think it's, Patty. Patty, if you can hear me, can you mute your microphone?
All right, so somebody has their TV on in the background and we can hear that. So if you can figure out who that is, that would be fantastic. If not, we'll just go on.
I think it's, oh. I think fixed it.
What?
I don't know if I hear it anymore.
Okay.
Okay.
So one of the exercises that you want to do is you want to bring the dog close to the climb and sit. And then you, wait, sit, pop. And then you want them to pop their front feet up, off. And then bring them back down like he just did. Off, pop, off. Good. And the reason for that is they really need to learn, they have to be close enough where they're reaching back and up and then reaching down. Again, this is to inspire them to learn how to lift the front of their body off the ground for a jump. Now see how he's moving back and back and back, so you have to keep moving him forward. Good. Okay, so this is one situation. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I'm holding this top climb. Turn it a little bit. Because if he pushes it, it's going to fall down like this. So you have to be in charge of holding that from moving, okay?
And there was a small question.
Okay.
Or doing this for small dog.
You just need to use lower equipment. Just has to be like the donut. The dog just has to be very close to the equipment when they're asked to pop up. Does that make sense? Could just be, so for some small dogs, it could just be that they're sitting right there and they pop up to put their front feet right here. But you really want them to be close enough where they really have to bring their legs in and up. Drama, off. Drama. So it could be the donut. It could be, you could put a bone against your legs and sit on a climb. You could do something like this. Sit, sit, up, up. Nope, up, up. Sit, up, up. Not quite the same because he's bigger, but you could definitely do the bone this way. Or just the mini egg or something else smaller. You just have to kind of improvise when you have smaller dogs. I don't have a small dog here, sorry. He's too noisy when the other dogs are working.
Jack.
Poor little Jack, he just doesn't like anyone else to get a turn. All right.
There was a question of, I have a friend's dog that drops bars with his rear legs. Would this still be helpful?
Yes. So again, the dog has to lift the front of their body up first before powering over a jump. So I would say the dog's jumping mechanics might be off, or you're asking the dog to jump higher than they should. Not necessarily for their jump heights, but for their body type. So for instance, I have a 22 3/4 tall border collie. He jumps very flat at 20. jumps a little bit more rounded at 22 and 24. He looks beautiful. At 26, you can really see that he's hoofing it to try to get over a jump. So I never ask him to jump 26 because it's a lot harder on his body. And that's a personal choice that I made, not something that I'm saying that you have to do. Just look at the dog's body and how they're jumping before you determine whether it's the right thing or not.
Then there was, could you just use the one climb with no legs on the ground and then the slanted climb on top of that for the smaller dog?
Of course. You could. Like I said, any rendition like that, you just have to adjust the equipment. Nothing that you saw here today, like almost every exercise that you saw here today could be done on many different pieces of equipment. Open your mind and really watch your dog's posture and how they're managing the exercise, and not so much worried about what equipment you're using, just making sure that the equipment is correct for the dog or the right size for the dog. So taking the legs off the climb and using the angle might be exactly what the dog needs as far as height. It also might be too low to get that pop. So like for a Jack Russell, I think that would be appropriate. And is it a mini Schnauzer?
I believe so. I believe it was.
So possibly for a Schnauzer-sized dog, taking the legs off the climb would be a perfect option for sure. But you get to that medium, like 25-pound dog, and then you have to start improvising even a little bit more because the taller version is going to be too tall and the smaller version is going to be too small.
In-betweeners.
Yes. All right. Any other questions? Back some of the stuff up. So really quick, I was going to show the pop-up using the peanuts. So I also do that same exercise with the dog very close to a peanut. Yep, up. So again, same exercise, different equipment. Any other questions before we wrap it up?
Not that I see it yet.
All right. Well, I hope that this webinar has opened your mind to some of the things that you can do with Klimb platforms and some of the other pieces of equipment. I know that sometimes, I think one of the comments that I hear a lot is people just don't know what to do. They don't know how to open their mind to the possibilities. And one of the things that I would recommend is taking like a foundation class that teaches you all of the foundation movements like sit stand, down stand, side stepping, pivot, nose touch hold, targeting, all of those types of things, so that your dog has a clear understanding of what you're asking. I don't know if you were paying attention, but I use nose touch a lot with Drama because it really gives him information as to what I want and where I want his nose to be. I try very hard not to lure him because then he's not only paying attention to his body. Doesn't mean that you can't lure, it just means they're paying less attention to their feet and their body when you're luring. So be real careful with that. But definitely just take a foundation course of some kind that helps you to understand how to give your dog more information. It will also help you understand how to pair equipment and how to use those foundation behaviors for fitness and to strengthen the parts of the body that you're looking to strengthen. All right, any other questions before we wrap up?
Nope.
All right, well, really quick, before we wrap up, I will mention that I am working on a new platform for my online classes. So they will not be on Daisy Peel anymore, but sometime hopefully in the next month, I will have some new classes available. And I want to introduce you guys to somebody. Hang on. All right, so this is Bravo. He's my new little mini Aussie puppy that was just picked up a couple of hours ago. Hey, you, get back up there. Lie down. You've already sniffed. Down. Wait. This is Bravo. I'm going to bring him really close so you can see him. Say hi.
Aw, so cute. Aw.
So you will probably be seeing a lot of him in the future. He's, hopefully you guys haven't been hearing him squealing. He's been right outside my studio door here having a little bit of a fuss because he wanted in on the action. All right. So anyway, I want to say thank you for joining me for all 3 Klimb webinars. In the next 24 to 48 hours, we will send you an email that has all 3 links. So I know you guys have all gotten, or those of you that have signed up have gotten the links as we go, but we thought it might be handy to have 3 links in one email. So we will send that out. We will also send out the winner of the Klimb. And that will be shipped directly from Blue 9. Blue 9 graciously offered to give away a Klimb at the end of the 3 webinars. And thank you guys very much. If you have any topics that you would like discussed in webinars, please put them in the comments before you log off. I would really appreciate knowing what you guys would like to learn. And hopefully you got some benefit out of these 3 webinars, and I hope to see you in the future. So I'm gonna let you guys put things in the comments before we log off. Close the door so the puppy's screaming isn't a distraction. And again, thank you guys very much for joining me. And Danielle. Danielle does a great job of letting me know when you guys have questions. So definitely can't do these webinars very well without her. So thank you.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Oh, all sorts of ideas coming through.
Yay, I like that. Keep them coming.
Puppy webinar, treadmill, tips for senior dogs. 3 Jack Russell Terriers tilting their head in response to your pup.
Of course.
Right.
Like, what is that squealing in the background? It wasn't exactly great timing. I knew there was a chance that he would squeal, so hopefully you guys didn't have to listen to it the whole time.
Lots of congrats on the new puppy and lots of oohs and ahs. Lots of oohs and ahs.
Yeah, hopefully he will be a little bit bigger than the 2 that I have at home. And I've been temperament testing the breeder's pups, who is Rebel Soul. And she has really, really good tempered pups, and she really breeds for temperament. And these dogs tend to be very friendly with people, very friendly with other dogs. They don't have fears, they don't have sound fears, and they're just very well-rounded. Whereas the 2 toy Aussies that I have at home, or toy American Shepherds, are afraid of people, both of them. So I'm kind of hoping to get the happy medium. We'll see how he turns out. Either way, you guys will probably be seeing a lot of it. So thank you all. I'm going to go ahead and end it so that the recording stops, but you guys can keep putting comments in.